Tony and Tony show.
Tonie and Tonie show episode, can't remember.
21. Yeah, almost 25. Then it's a big party, confetti, after parties, etc. But
Yes. Exclusive after party.
very exclusive. But I think we should invite our number one author,
Phil should be there.
Yeah, because today in the Tony and Tony show, we not have one article, but we have two articles.
Two articles. I think
Two
this is
articles.
the first. Two articles by Phil Factor.
I don't know if it's a first. Maybe we did it when Kent was still employed, that we did two articles. But
good of them.
but now there's a special reason for two articles. And I'm going to start with the first one because it is, well, like it says, getting started. So it's an introduction article for the code analysis engine that runs within the check command of Flyway, right?
Indeed, that's right. So there's two articles on this topic. This one we're just about to have a quick look at is you're getting started, how to run rules, what do they look like? And then the second one is building custom rules and maintaining them, because when you get lots and lots of rule files, that becomes a little bit more of an issue. So let's starting with the getting started.
Yeah, and Phil links to other articles where he emphasizes on code smells, table smells, and he sets apart two different types of analysis. So the dynamic code analysis by actually just running code and seeing it, or the static code analysis. And we're now talking about static code analysis, right?
Exactly, yeah. So dynamic, when you use it, you query the metadata of your RDBMS, and then static, which is it's inspecting scripts rather than a live database. Inspecting the code. So, and this is particularly, so Flyway has, as you say, it runs a check code command, and it actually can perform two types of static analysis. One uses a built-in parser, what they typically call a SQL linter, and it's called SQL Fluff. And obviously, because it's a parser, it understands the SQL language, so it's quite an accurate and reasonably powerful method of analyzing that SQL for code style issues, bad practices, and so on. But it's not very customizable. The second thing it does is run a bunch of built-in and custom regex rules. So they're less powerful in the sense that they treat SQL as plain text, but highly customizable. So they can catch certain bad practices quite easily. They can give you. They're more like there's a hint of trouble here. You better have a look. They're really useful for that, and they're customizable to what the team wants.
But highly customizable. Isn't that the middle name of Phil Factor?
Indeed. It should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but that's the second article, right? That dives deep into this.
This is just getting you familiar with how this works. So we're focusing on the regex rule. So here it is. You've got a Flyway set of migration scripts. So it's analyzing pending migration files. So you're just about to run a migration. You're thinking, okay, better check these first. Make sure I've not made any terrible mistakes or terrible crimes against the team standard.
But crimes against the team standard, and then last minute migration checks. Shouldn't that be done earlier in the process? So
the developer can do these while he's writing migrations. He doesn't have to happen late in the process.
Yeah. Okay. So a migration in the test phase could also be
or development phase. Yeah, absolutely right. So before you commit to the main development branch.
But even team standards can be implied on different ways, like using SQL prompt with some styling and with some code analysis. Or
the SQL Server, it can, because SQL prompt has a built-in linter, and it will run those rules. And you can run those rules with Flyway, but they're only for SQL Server. Whereas Flyway's built-in linter is across the database, and the regex rules you can adapt them to whatever system you're using.
Yeah, so SQL prompt, the name says it all. It's a prompt tooling of Redgate that will help you write SQL code. So SQL Server.
and check
Yeah.
SQL code.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you are doing SQL Server, that is worth checking out
Okay.
as well.
Okay. But during your migrate or before you migrate, this check command will check all the pending migration files
Exactly right.
with the rules that
Yeah.
Phil explains here.
It'll
And
run the SQL Fluff rules, and then it'll run the regex rules, or one or the other,
yeah,
depending
well,
on how
the
you.
SQL Fluff is linked, and you can
Yeah,
read
we're not going to
about
cover
that.
that here. We're not going to
No,
cover
we're
that
going to
here.
cover here the regex rules. Yes.
So we could just go through. This is really, like you say, getting started. It's going to show you what you store the rules in TOML files in a rules directory in your Flyway project.
Okay.
It's showing you there the basic standard, the basic format of those rules, brief descriptions, and then it runs through there's a bunch, there's not too many actually, but there's some default regex rules that kind of are mainly there to guard against like potential data loss if you're going to drop a table, for example, or
Okay.
drop a column. Or there's some rules in there that if you're doing grant all these permissions to all these people, if you're running those sorts of commands, it'll flag those for you.
Those default rules, are those also the rules I see within my Flyway desktop preview migration
Yes.
window? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are the ones. They're the ones that run by default in your Flyway desktop.
Okay.
But this is running from the command line with the check code command. And if you keep scrolling down, it just goes through the basics of what the check command rule accepts, and running it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the quite fun bit of the article for me is testing them out. So Phil provides what he calls a SQL assault course, like a terrible SQL file with loads of like crimes in it.
Okay.
And he just runs through it.
Okay.
Running check code.
And here you have your smelling parts.
And there you go. You get your smell report in JSON.
Okay. Cool. So, but
that's it.
We promised not only the getting started.
Yep.
We promised more. And can I link from this one to the other one? Not yet. But
no!
You're gonna fix it.
Fail. Editor will fix.
You're gonna fix it. But I still like the article. So, but if we go one page down and one up, and while this is loading, do you know where the term lint comes from?
Enlighten me.
Well, I've just looked it up on my separated window. So while I was looking not directly to the camera, I was just doing some live investigation. But the term linter stems from the origin of the tool called lint, which was initially developed by Stephen G. Johnson in 1978 at Bell Labs, originally designed to analyze C source code.
Now I know.
And now I also know. And so now all the people know.
Yes.
Well, but only a few minutes more in the clock. Let's get back to the article. So
you've got the basics of like what the rules look like, how to run the built-in rules, but that's probably, you're going to want, because they cover like, data loss or security rules, but you're going to want to build out your own set of rules. Every team will want to do this to catch, to enforce certain standards, to catch certain mistakes that could cause instability or erratic behavior in your code.
Yeah.
And this is this is like, you don't want to build too big a regex library because it becomes a bit of a burden, but and also it's not everybody agrees on what the standard should be. But
there are different ways to do regex.
Exactly right. Yeah. But this is like, how do you craft custom rules? It's not. It can trip you up because it uses Java regex, which isn't exactly the same as .NET regex.
Really? There's a difference. Oh,
there is some subtle differences, yeah, and also some differences because. So, for example, there's the regex that Flyway will use to detect use of select star in your code.
Mm-hmm. This one.
But in the TOML file, you have to escape the backslash, and it's not immediately obvious why, but Java regex works with a single backslash, but Java and Flyway is written in Java needs you to escape it in a string literal, so you've got a double backslash. And if you're storing that rule in JSON, which Phil does, I'll show you that later, you need to double escape.
Double. Well, that sounds like a fantastic burger from a fantastic American fast food joint.
Yeah,
But
double escape burger.
uh,
It's
uh,
very tasty.
it's a double escape burger, yeah. But we won't mention the brand because it's not sponsoring us yet. But
No,
reach out to Tony Show, and then we will. But
we
back
can
to the
talk.
show. Yeah, we can talk.
Yes.
We're good people.
And so it just mentions a few gotchas, talks about the fact that, regex notoriously, if you've got really, really big SQL scripts to analyze, be careful because there's certain patterns that cause what they call backtracking, and it won't necessarily perform well.
Oh,
So
okay.
it just mentions a few things like that. And
And
then,
it also showed me a tool I never heard about, regex buddy.
buddy, oh yeah, Phil loves regex buddy.
Yeah, and you can also just choose Java 17 just as your regex buddy. And
Exactly what he said.
yeah. So that's interesting. But the real interesting part is that he is explaining, with of course some examples, how to build this library of all your regex
Rules.
stuff,
Yep.
rules, but not as separated files as the Flyway uh, Tommel advises you to do, but he will just parse this library just in time to all Tommel rules, so Flywheel can read it, right?
Yep. So here's the rules he gives you as a starter pack. They come from his SQL Code Smells book. Have a read of it. It's a nice book, actually. The link's just up above that table.
Okay.
So this is all the rules he's going to do for us. Format only, end of line comments. So yes, he doesn't like maintaining lots of individual rules because he also points out that they're very rarely stay written. You've got a frequent maintenance role as well. So maintain them all in one file is what he says. So he writes them all into JSON. It's got a single rules.json file. And then when he wants to run the thing, it dynamically writes each of the JSON rules into its own individual TOML file.
Then
the rules
runs the
folder,
check.
and then runs check code.
Yeah.
So there you go. So whenever you want to update a rule, you edit the JSON file. So that's the code that does that writing out to TOML in the correct format. And then if you're going to add and edit rules, you just do it in the JSON file, then just rerun that code that pings them back out to the rules folder. As long as you remember to do that, that's the one step you've got to remember doing if you're going to do this system. And then run them, and there's your code report.
Cool.
So you've got a nice little PowerShell script that ticks through them all, and it shows you what script was affected, what line, what rule was violated. You can sanitize your code to some extent if you catch these early, and you will, over time, it will increase the reliability of your code, the quality of your code, maybe more stable deployments. These are the sort of things you can start to measure over time. It's not the only sort of analysis you've got to do, obviously.
No. But it's a good extra tool in your toolkit, and with the help of Phil, you can even make a library out of it.
Exactly.
With only 4 minutes over our usual 10 minutes, but covering 2 articles, which are
true. We have to let us off.
we just have to let us off, and we will see you on the next episode. I think that's the best to close this. And check out both of the articles.
Yep.
And we see you on episode 22.
22. Cheers, Tony.
Bye.